see Orbiting Jupiter tonight. I have a real quick few housekeeping things before we get started here. First things first, we're going to have a 10-minute intermission in between the first and second act. But we do ask that you kind of stay roughly where you are during the intermission in the general vicinity of your seats, just for safety's sake. If you do have to go to the bathroom, our bathrooms are out that barn door and to the right. And if you need some waters, we can get those to you too during intermission. Secondly, I just want to say, if you guys want to say hi to the cast, congratulate them afterwards, you're totally good to do that, but we would ask that you do that outside the barn rather than inside, just again for safety's sake. Next, I'd just like to thank you guys all for coming out today, despite everything that's happening right now. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know, this is new theater. This was a novel a little bit ago, and I was in kind of the adapting process in December, and we were originally going to perform in May. But now with everything that's happened, I'm thankful you guys are still able to see the show. I'm still here, and I hope you are all still here because art is important and story is important, especially right now. Last but not least, I would like to give a warm welcome to the author of Orbiting Jupiter, who's here with us tonight, Gary Schmidt. Dr. Schmidt has been super gracious in allowing us to take his story and kind of run with it and turn it into a play. So thank you, Dr. Schmidt, for everything you've done for us. With that, let's all enjoy the show. Thank you, guys.
Joseph did. Every night before he turned out the light, he looked out his window and he could find you. Among all the other stars, he could see lots of stars. When we'd walk through the woods behind the house, he would look up at the sky and find you. It didn't matter if it was raining or snowing or anything. Joseph always knew. I'm sure Joseph was looking for you the night Mrs. Stroud came to bring him out of Stone Mountain to catch him. The night he got into her car and left.
Chapter 1, East of Maine.
It was a Wednesday afternoon 2 years ago when Mrs. Stroud drove up to Eastern Maine. Down the long dirt road that ran its way through our town, past all the shops, stores, and houses, although there aren't many of those at Easton. Past Easton Middle, my school, the only middle school in Easton. Past Old First Congregation, one of the few churches we had. Almost everyone I knew went to there at some church. You couldn't guess what people would say in a small town named Eden. She drove past our small grocery store, past the post office, past our one McDonald's, up our long dirt driveway, up the big hill in front of our garage, past the barn and the cows in the fields, past the pond which I finally found, past the apple trees which were just beginning to bloom, and past the bees doing their dances. Up to our small white door where she knocked, where she would bring Joseph in just 2 days later.
stopped before, I'm sure. And this is Jack.
Well, hello, Jack.
I've heard quite a lot about you. I'm sure you're going to make an excellent foster brother for Joseph someday. Hopefully very soon. Yes, Jack has been very excited.
We've been talking about his new brother. Please sit down, Mrs. Stroud.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. I've just come by to make sure you fully understand this decision. Taking on someone like Joseph Brooke isn't really an easy task, so I wanted to make sure you fully understood what you're taking. So I brought some documents that will need your signatures, as well as some more information about Joseph.
What kind of information?
Well, Jack, I've talked to your parents about most of this. Joseph has been through quite a lot.
Then she looked me right in the eyes.
Before you agree to have Joseph come and live with you, there's one or two things you ought to understand.
She took out a folder that read,
State of Maine, Department of Health and Human Services.
Mrs. Stroud opened that folder. This is what she told me.
2 months ago, when Joseph was at Lake Edwards Juvenile, a kid gave him something bad in the boys' bathroom. He swallowed it. After a long time, the teacher came looking for him. And when she found him, he screamed. She said that he better come out of the bathroom right now. And he screamed again. And that's when he tried to kill her. So they sent Joseph to Stone Mountain Detention Facility. We won't talk about what happened to him there. We won't wear anything orange.
She said that,
We won't let anyone stand behind him.
she said that,
We won't let anyone touch him. You really can't touch him or stand behind him.
she said that,
You won't go into rooms that are too small.
she said that he won't eat canned peaches.
He's not too big on the loaf either.
He hasn't tried my mother's canned peaches. He'll try those.
Please. Jack, your parents know this and you should too. There's something else about Joseph. He has a daughter. And she's only 3 months old. He's never seen her before. It's one of the biggest heartbreaks about this case. Anyways, Mrs. Kurt, I will leave these with you. Talk it over and then decide.
We've already talked it over. We know.
Are you sure?
For sure.
Have you, Jack?
2 days later, on Friday, Mrs. Stroud brought Joseph home. He looked like any regular kid at Easton School. Dark hair and dark eyes. A little taller than normal. He really could have been any other kid at Easton. Except he had a daughter. And he wouldn't look at you when he talked. If he talked.
He didn't say a thing when he got out of the car. He wouldn't let my wife hug him, and he wouldn't shake my hand. I took him to his room, and he threw his stuff on the top bunk and climbed up. He lay there for the rest of the night. He didn't say a thing. The next morning, I called Jack and him in to milk the cows.
In the big barn, Joseph and I tore up 3 bales and then went back to the cows in the paddock. So these are 2 cows, Rosie and Dahlia. They're even older than I am. Have you ever milked a cow before? That's okay, I haven't learned how to milk them too. They're really nice though. If they move around, it means they like you. We use their milk for everything, and sometimes we sell it too. And it's really important for us to do this every day, otherwise it's bad. So yeah, we have to do this every afternoon after we go home from school. If you come over here, I can show you how to do it. School's pretty fun most of the time. Some of the teachers are not annoying, but I think you'll get along okay with everyone. As long as you don't talk to Mrs. Haskell. She's our bus driver and she's super annoying.
Which one is that?
That one's Rosie. She's the calmest. If you rub her rump, she'll move. What do you like to do for fun? My friends and I like to play basketball in the summer, and in the winter we skate. What's your daughter's name? Don't you have a daughter?
What?
Joseph, you can watch her now, but soon you'll be helping. Joseph just stood there, with his back against the wall.
When my mother got to Rosie, she asked,
Would you like to try milking her? She's gentle. She'd let anyone milk her. Well, I'll be back in a minute with the pails.
Joseph didn't say anything. But as soon as my mother left, I saw him try to rub Rosie's rump, just to see if she'd be happy. Rosie got on a big moo. She's just telling you she's happy.
I don't care.
one day, Joseph and I went to ride the bus to school, which I've done a million times. You wait in the cold and the dark, and the bus pulls up, and Mrs. Haskell doesn't talk to you or even look at you because
It's cold and it's dark, and I didn't spend all my life wanting to be a bus driver, you know? So you better go sit down.
So you sit down and the bus pumps over to Easton Middle. Not a big deal. But that morning, Mrs. Haskell was right past me.
How do I know you? You're that kid who has a daughter. Miss Camp told the staff all about it just so we could be sensitive, you know? Hey, if you want to walk, it's no skin off my nose. 2 miles that way. And what do you think you're doing?
That last part was to me, because I got off the bus too.
You know, I didn't mean anything. Just getting to know you, kid. Suit yourself. It's 21 degrees out there.
Why did you do that?
I don't know.
You should have stayed on the bus.
Yeah, probably right. It isn't any 21 degrees out. And right as I walked in front of Joseph to start towards school, I heard him say,
Hey,
he dropped his backpack and picked up a stone from the side of the road. He looked carefully towards the steeple of Oakhurst Congregation, Easton's most attended church. The steeple stood high above the rest of the church with an old bell that looked like it could have been centuries old. I've never heard that bell before. It's hard to throw with your gloves on.
you throw it off your front foot. Push off with your back. See?
I think I saw Joseph smile.
Give me some of your stuff.
Thanks.
We'll get there faster.
I gave him some of my textbooks, and then I pulled out my PE stuff, but he told me I could
Carry
my
your own stinking job.
2 miles. I can't even tell you what my fingers were. When we finally got to school, the halls were empty except for Mrs. Canton, the vice principal who probably would have been better off as a drill sergeant.
Did you miss the bus?
Sort of.
Sort of.
We got off.
It's not even 20 degrees out there. Why did you get off the bus?
Bus driver's a huge jerk.
Excuse me?
And how do you even wear shoes like that? Looks like someone shined them 10 minutes ago.
You're Mr. Brooke, right? Maybe one of your problems is a lack of respect. This means party for both of you. Get to class, Jackson.
Yes, ma'am.
Follow me. I'll go over your schedule. You do have a schedule, you know, Joseph. He didn't say anything.
Chapter 2, our favorite planet.
After that, Joseph and I started walking to school together every day.
You boys will need some gloves and hats and probably some sweaters and your father's old winter coat.
At least kind of together. He was always a little bit behind me. We followed the Alliance River running cold and dark this time of year, and we'd stop at Oakhurst Congregation over praying to God. Every day, no matter how cold it was. Monday,
23 degrees.
Tuesday,
19 degrees.
Wednesday,
21 degrees.
Thursday,
16 degrees.
Friday.
8 degrees.
I don't think he would say anything, but I'm pretty sure Joseph was glad I was there.
I'm not sure everyone was glad this was at Easton. At lunch, we sat alone. In the classroom, we sat alone. And after school, waiting for the bus home, we sat alone. Mr. Collin wouldn't let him in his 8th grade science class either, even though he was in 8th grade. But he was in the 8th grade math class that I taught. We teachers were so careful around him. I guess it was enough that he tried to kill a teacher once. I'm sure that's what Mrs. Holloway thought whenever she looked at him. In her language arts class, when no one else was looking, he would pull a picture out of his wallet. He held it so no one else could look at it. Holloway didn't like that. And then there was Canton.
Ahem. Mrs. Haskell said you weren't on the bus again today.
I walked.
With Joseph Brooke?
Yes, it was.
Listen, Jackson. I respect your parents. I really do. They're trying to make the world a better place. They're bringing kids like Joseph into a normal family, but kids like Joseph aren't necessarily going to be normal. They're just going to be different. Think different, and that's okay. Kids like that just think differently.
He's not really like that.
Are you sure? When's the last time you've had to talk to the vice principal? When's the last time you've gotten a target? Monday. And who were you with? I'm just warning you to be careful around Mr. Brooke. You don't really know all that much about him. Satan should forfeit, those trials should come. Let its blessed assurance control.
Joseph started all the most fire. Things like that. And in Maine, you don't even need a porch light on to do the chores. Outside that night, it was cold and bright. Are you okay?
What?
Are you okay?
Yeah, why wouldn't I be?
Joseph, I know this might be a little hard to talk about. You don't have to answer me. But I'd love to hear a little bit about your daughter. Like, maybe her name. I know you probably think about her a lot.
It's none of your
I'm
business.
just asking.
Her name is Jupiter.
Jupiter.
It was our favorite planet.
Jupiter.
I always know where Jupiter is.
Come on, you'll get the hang of it soon.
You need milk this bad, there's probably some place you can go and buy it like normal
Oh,
people.
I don't need the milk, Joseph. The cows need you to milk them.
She doesn't need me to
She
milk
needs
her.
Sit down on the stool. All right, now I'll show you again. Lift up your forefinger. Here's the top. Like this. Then you let your fingers strip the milk down. Like this. It took a while before there was any progress, but it wasn't slow and steady. But Joseph was milking, and I guess I was happy. I almost forgot not to cry. I'm so sorry, Joseph. I'll try to remember. The way he was breathing, Joseph always knew where Jupiter was.
Not every teacher wanted Joseph out of wisdom. Coach Sliders didn't mind him, especially during the apparatus unit, when he found out he could do stuff better than any of the other 8th graders. When they climbed the rope, Joseph could do it in 38 seconds, 3 seconds faster than slide test. I teach 6th, 7th, 8th, 8th grade math. I don't understand why students complain about it. I mean, what's really more exciting than solving an equation? Anyways, so one day I was on bus monitor duty. I noticed Joseph sitting alone again, by the end of the bus. And I don't know, I had a feeling about this. Joseph! Joseph! Can you come with me, please?
Am I in trouble again?
I don't think so. Should you be? Just follow me.
I have to wait.
It'll just be a minute. I took him back to my classroom and showed him some geometry proofs. He knew them all. After that, I started bringing a new theorem to 5th period office duty every day. Mrs. Kenton didn't like that.
Joseph Brooke is on office duty.
Of course. It is so much more important for him to run around school dropping off messages than to be challenged to learn what great mathematicians have wrestled with for 1,000 years.
You'd think they'd have solved it by now.
It's not the solution, Mrs. Kenton. It's the path to the solution that's fascinating.
You need to deliver these
And when you get back, I want you to clean up the attendance files. After that, I guess they were pretty busy during fifth hour office duty. So Joseph started eating lunch in my room. I'd give him some proofs and he'd work on them until the bell rang. I think he was just happy not to be eating alone. And I guess I was too. I thought by the end of the year, we might even start working on some trig questions. I didn't have any other students who could do trig.
Joseph never talked about his family, but one day I met his dad. As soon as I saw him, I knew it. Same dark eyes.
Joe Brown,
No.
they got you doing chores.
Huh?
What are you here for?
I live here.
I know you lived here, I mean before. You Mr. Hurd?
That's right. Jack, why don't you come back here and spread money for Rosa, will you? You're not supposed to be here.
I wanted to see what kind of hellhole they put my son into.
Like I said, you're not supposed to be here.
You got him shoveling manure too. Is that what you get out of this? A bunch of kids to do work for you?
We're taking good care of Joseph, and now it's time for you to go.
You know, I can take
I'm
care
sure
of him.
you can. Now it's time for you to get out.
Joe,
Joseph, go back into the house and help Mrs. Hurd.
Joe, come here and look your father in the eyes.
Joseph, you don't have to.
I'm talking to my son.
Joseph!
Do you really like it here, Joe? Talk to me. Talk to your dad. Do you honestly think it's better here for you? You belong back at home, carrying the tools for your old man. You don't belong here, Joe. You're not
Mr. Brooke, I will say this one last time. You are not supposed to be here. Leave now, or I will have the police here in minutes.
I will be back to see my son.
Chapter 3, New Ice.
By the end of November, it looked like my father was right. We were in for a wicked winter. And whenever we walked to school, everything around us was only white. The ground, the trees, the bell tower, the congregational, the sky, even the Alliance River. I guess that's why Joseph dropped his backpack that day and headed towards the river. What are you doing, Joseph?
What does it look like I'm doing, Jackie?
Joseph, I'm serious.
Figure it out, Jackie.
You know, this is pretty new ice. Joseph, I'm serious. This is insane. I've seen people fall through before. Joseph, I'm not kidding. Joseph, please stop. Joseph.
Shut up!
Maddie.
Shut up!
Maddie.
Shut up!
Maddie. Joseph, please stop. Joseph.
Joseph, please.
The winter I was 6, I saw a yellow dog on thin ice in the Alliance River. I was with my mother and we were walking back from Oak First Congregational. The dog was pretty feral and it had fallen through and its eyes were huge. It was grabbing onto this front paws, scratching, looking for something to hold on to. It wasn't making a sound and I told my mother that we had to go get it, but she just stood there, holding her hand over her mouth. It just kept looking for something to hold on to. Until something had stopped, put its head on the ice, slipped in the dark water, and was gone. Gone. I live on a farm. I see animals die all the time. Never like that. I cried about that yellow dog every night for I don't know how long. I had dreams about it, about the cold water, the ice pulling my legs and dragging me down, and about the moment when I put my head out of the ice and slid into the dark water. Gone. That's why it felt like a nightmare when Joseph stepped out onto the ice. That's why I screamed Maddie. The name I heard him say in the dark of the night again and again and again. That's why I screamed when Joseph fell through the ice of the Alliance River. That's how people die, you know. They fall into the water and they get dragged into the ice and they make it back and they freeze to death.
Then we better get back to your house then, Jackie.
It's Jack.
Yeah.
What?
We're out now, aren't we? Let's just go.
But his lips were blue already, and so were mine, and I wasn't exactly sure we would make it. So maybe it wasn't such a bad thing when Mrs. Canton drove up to us at the bank with her perfectly unscuffed shoes.
And is this why you were always
Mrs.
late?
Canton, I was
If
just...
someone hadn't called me about two crazy kids out on the ice, I wouldn't come here. It wasn't too hard to figure out who it would be, either.
But just then, I didn't feel like arguing with her and her perfectly unscuffed shoes.
Jackson, I expected more from you. I've talked to you before about being careful with who you spend your time with.
Oh, that's real sweet of you, Canton.
Joseph Brooke, I will be talking to you about this during fifth period office week tomorrow morning. Something for you to look forward to. You know I want what's best for both you and your family. Take your sweaters and your coats off before you get in our car. I will try to go with you home to properly prepare.
So Mrs. Canton drove us home. You can imagine what my mother said when we got inside later that day.
Stand in front of the wood stove. Everything that's wet, off. Underwear too. It's not like there's anything I haven't seen before.
And you can guess what my father said when he got back.
Chad, what do I tell you every single year? What have I told you over and over?
Don't go onto the ice until you say it's safe.
Did I say it was safe?
No, sir.
No, I didn't.
Mr. Hurd.
Quiet, Joseph. I'll talk to you in a minute. Of all the brainless, foolish things for a boy who has lived on a river all his life, this was the most brainless, the most fool thing you could come up with. If for 1 minute you had
He
thought...
came onto the ice for me.
I know, Joseph. That's what we'll be talking about.
That night it was cold in our room. And maybe it was because of all that frozen water. But when Joseph leaned against his bed, I could see a long scar that ran down his back. The white line dragged from all the way under his right shoulder all the way down to his sweatpants.
Jackie,
It's Jack.
listen. Don't worry about Canton. Your father's gonna call her. You'll be all right.
I wasn't worried.
I know.
I wasn't.
I know.
But my stomach getting on it. I guess I wasn't really good.
And Jackie, don't ever say that name again. Her name is Madeline. I'm the only one who calls her Maddie.
Okay. Joseph, why did you get on the ice?
Maddie liked to skate.
I didn't say anything the rest of the night. It was the first thing I had ever heard about it.
The next morning, I told the boys that from now until spring, they would be taking the bus to school. No arguments. So I waited with them by the end of the bus line, just to be sure.
Looks like you two got your minds changed for ya. I hear your boy had a little trouble yesterday.
Oh, is that what you hear?
That's what I hear. I guess your husband really took him out to the woodshed, if you know what I mean.
Actually, I'm pretty proud of what he did.
Almost drowning.
I guess you didn't hear everything.
Are you getting on or not?
Joseph looked like he didn't want to sit by anybody, so I sat down by Ernie. I guess we were being loud right now. And then she said some words you probably wouldn't hear in our old first congregation at church, and we all sat down.
Did you actually fall into the Alliance River?
Not exactly.
How can you not exactly fall into the river?
I went in public.
That's how people die, you know. You're nuts, freaking nuts. If you got me left, that's what phrases first. Why are you hanging around with him anyways? Everyone knows he's psycho. He probably dragged you in the river, didn't he?
We live in the same house.
Oh, that doesn't mean anything.
You know he'll be gone as soon as they find a place for him in psycho
Shut up.
school. Maybe this is news to you, Jack, but he almost killed a teacher.
That's crazy.
Crazy will happen with some of the 8th grade guys who will find your psycho brother by himself. You hear what he did to Jay Perkins? But they were in the only class and Jay said something to psycho about his girl in like 2 seconds. He had his hand around his throat.
That's not true.
All I know is that Jay would be dead right now if it weren't for the only. And since the only blamed Jay for saying what he did, nothing happened. Jay's going around telling everyone how he's gonna bust your foster brother up. Psycho school better start looking real good.
When we got to school, Mrs. DeUngy was waiting for Joseph.
Joseph, let's talk before the bell.
I didn't hear what they said.
Joseph, what were you thinking?
Just because
I was worried about you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Now come with me. I'll write you a pass for your first hour. I have some trick questions I want you to try.
In 5th period office duty, there really wasn't much to do. Mrs. Canton was busy as all get out, and we had already cleared out the attendance files, and there weren't any messages to deliver. So Joseph pulled out Octavian Nothing and began to read. Then Canton walked up.
Joseph, put the book away. You are not here to read books or play games. You are here to work. And you never know when there might be an important errand to run.
I guess.
You guess? Being responsible, Mr. Book, means being ready to do what you're supposed to be doing, even if no one is watching you or making you do it. Do you understand that? Do you understand that?
I have to get to class.
Joseph!
Don't touch it!
Please don't touch me.
Better get to class. The way he was breathing on you. That night it was so cold that even Joseph, who said he wasn't going to wear anything like that long underwear I gave him, put it on. Jack and I went down to our little pond and started to shovel off the snow. It didn't take us long, and after all the snow was shoveled, the ice beneath was smooth and slippery and light green. Jack and I lay around the edge of our pond where it was still clear, and we could see things like pebbles and drowned sticks and sand. It was about then when Mr. Hurd came back with Joseph.
What fool thing are you guys up to?
Well, come and see. You too, Joseph. The stars began to come out as we laced up our skates. We could already see the moon.
He skated around and around, even after Mrs. Hurd and I got off the ice to start a fire.
Around and around. Even after I got off this.
His hands were out and his eyes were closed, and we watched him lean and skate, round and around.
I wonder if he was skating with metal.
Around and around. And I didn't want him to stop, no matter how cold and late it got. The stars watched, and so did the moon, and Jupiter, the mountains.
Jupiter. I have to see Jupiter.
Joseph, you
Will
know
you
that.
help me?
You know that.
And under the stars, and the moon, and Jupiter, Joseph told us everything.
Everything.
Chapter 4, Madeline Joyce.
Maddie liked to skate. She was good at it, too. We used to go to the pond that was out behind her house. She was pretending she was skating on it. She didn't need skates like these. She slid in her boots. It was beautiful in them. Better than beautiful. She would skate around and around till the sun went down. Skating until the stars, the moon, and Jupiter came out. And she would squint her eyes. She would have her arms out. and the wind would blow through her hair. She would look right at me. She loved that. She was only 13 when I met her. Her mom and dad were lawyers, so she spent most of the time alone in her big house. When she was there, the hot summer morning, my dad came to change the shower heads and faucets, and brought me and carried the tools. When she first smiled at me, I felt something different, like I was in some crappy rom-com. So I came back 2 days later. We watched movies. She showed me how to play tennis. We could take a long walk and cut back through the woods. Before I left that day, she pushed me into a pool with all my clothes on. It would keep me cool on the 7-mile walk home. That summer, I walked those
1, 2, 3,
4,
5,
6
7 miles.
to her house every day. We would watch movies, play tennis. And we would take those long walks that cut back through the woods behind her house. I hated walking those 7 miles back from her house every day. But walking with her felt like nothing. She never asked why my face looked so beat up. I never told her what my father was doing to me, because I wasn't around to carry the tools. I didn't have to. When I was with her, it felt like we were on our own planet, in a dark sky.
Joseph, it's freezing. What are you looking at?
I can't see Jupiter. I don't know where she is.
It's where it always is.
No, it isn't. I'm not going to stay alone.
You're not alone.
I am. I'm alone.
No, you're not.
I'm alone, Jackie.
You have me.
Jackie, I'm a lifetime ahead of you.
It's Jack.
Okay, Jackie.
By the next morning, it was snowing, which meant if we wanted to skate, we would have to shovel off the ice pond again. The bus was late. Mrs. Haskell skidded the tires and the new You thinking the girl was better? Go ahead! That's what I thought!
Ernie.
Listen, Jack.
Relax, Ernie. She's not going to
Just
just
listen.
die.
Don't hang around Psycho Kid anymore, okay?
What's that supposed to mean?
Just don't hang around him.
What?
No reason?
Ernie,
I said no reason.
Ernie went back to looking out the window, and we sat in silence for the rest of the ride.
That fall, Maddie went away to school in Andover. I didn't know what to do. So I went to the library every afternoon to write to her. Writing stunk, but it was better than nothing. A little. When I was without her, nothing felt exciting. But she came back for Christmas, and I walked those
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 miles.
to her house and knocked on her door, and she was there, looking as happy as she did before. She brought me inside, and we had hot chocolate and coffee. She told me all about Andover, about her school and her friends and her classes, and how she would skate out on the pond behind the schoolhouse. And she was excited to show me something. Something she wrote. I could listen to her play forever. I didn't ever need to say anything. Even when we went on those long walks through the snowy acreage, she told me more about Andover, about her friends and her classes, how she would talk with her favorite teachers. She would throw snowballs at me, and I threw snowballs at her. But I couldn't even imagine hitting Maddie with a snowball. That night, we stayed out behind the pond and skated around and around till the stars and the moon and Jupiter came out. We just sat on the bank and watched them. That's Jupiter, my favorite planet.
It's mine too now.
And when she got tired, she grabbed my hand and we danced. Under the stars, the moon, and Jupiter. Our favorite planet. Maddie closed her eyes. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to miss a second. Because I loved her. I hadn't known that before. Oh, good. Feel me. Guess I hadn't known anything.
What kind of love is that?
I figured out what Ernie meant on the bus that day, about staying away from Josie. I knew what he meant a few days later in gym class, when Coach Right End was gone to some stupid PE conference, and we had some stupid substitute who knew just as much about running a PE class as Mrs. Dunban. I knew when Ernie told me to roll up the mats with him after class. When I looked at Ernie and around the gym, and some of the 8th graders were still shooting baskets, but Joseph had already gone into the locker room. When Nick Porter and Brian Boss and Jay Perkins were gone too.
Jack.
I could hear slamming from the locker room again and again.
Again and again. Jack, please just don't.
I could hear Joseph yelling from all the way outside the locker room.
Jack.
I ran down the center aisle towards the 8th grade locker room as fast as I could, slamming and yelling.
Slamming and yelling.
And Joseph. And Jay Perkins flying on the floor, blood pouring out of his room. And Nick Porter and Brian Boss holding Joseph and slamming over and over again against the lockers. And you can imagine the crowd was blood too, spattering his leg on the back. And Joseph not saying anything because Nick Porter had his hand across Joseph's mouth and he was shoving him over and over again against the lockers. Then Jay Perkins stood up.
Jay, no!
I came in here.
Jay, come on!
But this stupid ass stood there and watched as it slammed him over and over again.
Slamming and yelling!
And Jay just kept walking. Stop it, Jay! Jay Perkins pulled his arm around and Nick Porter pulled him into it. Right as Jay Perkins reached his back, and I couldn't see him out to get in one more time. And I stopped!
Get out of here, Jackie.
He just shook his head. And he sat there bleeding, and he shook his head and told me to leave. He looked the same way he did when he was looking for Jupiter every night out a window. Through the rain or the snow or the clouds. The same way he did when anyone got too close, when he could feel someone behind him, and he shot up like he had seconds left to live. Like someone had gotten too close before. Like he's ready to do anything to not get hurt. He looked the same way he did when he was sleeping. Late at night when he would shout, "Let me go!" Words I didn't even know. When he would just say a name, when he would shout, "Jupiter!" His eyes looked wide. Like he's ready to give up. Like he's ready to put his head on the ice and slide into the dark water. God! I couldn't see another yellow dog die. Stop! And Joseph was trying. Like it now. And he didn't stop, and he looked like he would never stop.
Chapter 5. The right decision.
I know Joseph didn't start that fight. I know he didn't because when I subbed for Coach Switek the day before, I watched those 3 guys watch Joseph. And they weren't watching him because he was so good at doing the dismounts from the parallel bars. It looked like Joseph didn't even notice, except the one time when Jay Perkins crossed in front of him when he was running. I didn't hear what Jay said. Joseph didn't say anything though, even though Nick Porter and Brian Boss laughed like it was funny. Sometimes I just made sure they weren't on the same apparatus unit as him. And when class was done, I made sure they were the last ones to clean up the mess. But I think Joseph had made a decision that day about who he wanted to be confronted, especially when Jay Perkins glared him down. Now, whenever Joseph ate lunch, he ate with Jack. And whenever Joseph sat in class, Jack sat with him. And whenever Joseph was waiting for the bus home, Jack sat with him. I guess Jack decided he really liked his new foster brother. I always knew Jack was a good kid.
I sat in Kenton's office, still in my gym stuff, and still with some blood on me. Not much. And Mrs. Kenton stood behind the desk, probably to keep her perfectly unstuffed shoes safe.
So you want to tell me what a 6th grader was doing in the 8th grade side of the locker room in an 8th grade fight?
Really?
Don't be smart with me, Jackson. We've talked before about what happens when you're with Joseph
It
Brooke.
was 3 guys on one. What was I supposed to do?
For starters, go get a teacher.
Would you have left the guy getting beat up to go find the teacher?
This is what I meant, Jackson.
It's Jack!
This wasn't your fight. This wasn't about you. But look what happened all because you were hanging around Joseph Brooke. I mean, you might get suspended. I'm telling you, I know his type. Trouble follows him like a yellow dog.
I've seen what happens to yellow dogs. And it was 3 against 1.
I'm not saying you didn't think it was the right decision. All I'm saying is you're a different kid around Joseph, not a better kid. You need to be careful
I did
around
think it
him.
was the right decision, and you still didn't answer my question. Would you have left the guy getting beat up?
Go get cleaned up. Bell rings in 10 minutes.
Later that night, before he turned the light out, Joseph stood by the window. His back was covered in cuts from the wire lockers, but I could still see the long scar that ran its way down his back.
Jackie,
It's Jack.
yeah, listen, you should have stayed out of it.
Maybe.
You should have. But no one's ever had my back before. Except Maddie. Thanks. Can you see her? Right there. Maddie's Christmas break lasted for 3 more weeks. I came every single day of it. 7 miles each way. And on the day before Maddie went away to school in Andover again, I walked those
1, 2, 3,
4,
5,
6
7 miles.
to her house in the rain and knocked on her door. She brought me inside, and we had hot chocolate and coffee, and I took off my wet clothes. She covered me in a red woolen blanket, and she asked me what I remembered about my mother. And I told her, not much. I remember going out after a snowstorm, pouring maple syrup onto the new snow, and eating it together. So that's what me and Maddie did. We found new snow and carefully ladled the maple syrup onto it. And when it froze, she picked it up and fed it to me. And I fed it to her. She laughed, she leaned forward, and she kissed me. For the first time.
Under the stars and the moon and Jupiter.
A few days later, we received a letter from Mrs. Canton that told us that Jack and Joseph would be suspended for a few days, and they were to be expelled if there were any further incidences. They would have to make up all their missed days when they got back to school. But Joseph didn't have to make up any of his classes.
You know how strange it is to see a teacher at your house? You instantly feel like you must have done something you'd rather not tell your parents. But she wasn't here for me. She was here for Joseph.
I went over some proofs with Joseph and assigned his homework. And when he was done, I graded some papers while he did his homework, so he could ask any questions he needed to. Hey Jack, why don't you come here and learn this too?
Mrs. Donnelly, won't I just have to learn it again next week?
Oh, it'll be good preparation, so quit fussing and get busy. Besides, this is exciting stuff.
She came all 4 days of Joseph's suspension. All 4 days, so Joseph wouldn't have to make up a single math class in all of January. And later, Mrs. Stroud came too. He looked really happy to see her. And she was happy too. So Joseph showed her around the farm, introduced her to Rosie and Dahlia. He showed her the big barn and the apple trees
and the pond where we had skated.
I think I saw him smile.
I'm really glad you like it, hey, Joseph.
That fall, Maddie went away to school in Andover. Maddie's parents took out an injunction against me. I wouldn't be able to see her again. Ever. That was when the State of Maine Department of Health and Human Services delivered the news to me and my dad that we would begin receiving monthly visits, and that Maddie went away to school in Andover. They wouldn't tell me which one. I had to find her.
1, 2, 3.
4, 5,
6.
7 miles. No one else knew it like I knew it. The police didn't understand when they found me at our house later that week. They didn't understand when I told them I just wanted to talk with their parents. To tell them who I really was. And if I wasn't able to see Maddie again, that was fine. We would make it on our own. I would do whatever it took. I would work. I loved her.
What kind of love is that?
Hello, are you Mr. Rowe? Oh, I'm Mrs. Stroud and I'm from the State of Maine Department of Health and Human Services. Nice name. Mr. Brooke, I'm here to talk to you about your son, Joseph. Are you familiar with the Joyce family?
Who?
We did some plumbing work on their house a while back.
Oh yeah, that pretentious.
Well, Mr. Brooke, it seems that your son, Joseph, has struck up a relationship with their daughter, Madeline.
The kid wasn't around to carry my tools anymore.
Mr. Brooke, Madeline Joyce is pregnant. Now, based on what we know, and my impression of the situation, that means that the DHHS has decided to remove Joseph from his home and place him in a juvenile detention facility. I'm really sorry, Mr. Brooke, but your son may be facing criminal charges.
It wouldn't be the first time. It probably won't be the last.
Mr. Brooke, do you understand that Joseph is going to be
Hey,
removed
stud,
from your...
you got some girl.
Joseph, I would like to talk to you about Madeline Joyce. Mr. Brooke, if you could give us some
You
privacy.
can tell me anything you're going to be telling my son.
Mr. Brooke. Would you like to sit down? I'm Mrs. Stroud, and I'm from Maine's Department of Health and Human Services. Joseph, sometime within the last year or so, you struck up a relationship with Madeline Joyce. Is that correct?
Yeah, what is this about?
Well, Madeline is pregnant. Now, since you're only 13 years old, you have no parental rights on this child.
I'm going to be a father.
Yes, that's right, Joseph. But you
I have to see
understand.
her. I have to see Maddie. We're going to have a baby. I have to be with her.
You can't be with her.
My dad can't find out about this. He really can't. We have to leave Maine. I have to see her. I need
You
to.
can't see her.
Maybe
You
Maddie's
know
parents will help us. Can they help us? I need to see her. My dad can't know about this. He really can't. Maybe I need to see Maddie. I need to see her. I need to see her.
Joseph! You can't be with her. You know that you can't. She's been school in Andover for the month, and frankly, it's none of your business where she's going to stay after that. I really am sorry, Joseph, but Madeline's parents, they aren't going to help you, Joseph. You're 13 years old. I'm afraid no one's going to be able to help you for a while.
Chapter 6. What kind of love is that?
On Christmas Eve that year, Joseph and Dad and I took some rock saws and headed up to the hills to climb the tree. Dad and I usually argue about which tree to cut down, but this we just let Joseph choose. It was the first Christmas tree he'd ever had. My mother brought down the boxes of ornaments and we set them on the kitchen table. The hand-made ones I made when I was young, the red glass bulbs my father got my mother one year, and the 13 glass angels my parents got me each, one for each year of my life. The glass bluebird, the tiny sled, and the teddy bear.
This one's for you.
Jupiter would love this.
Joseph always knew where Jupiter was.
All right, now I need you boys to get ready. Church starts in about an hour, and we are making it to church on time, even if the gates of hell stand against us. Joseph, have you ever been to a church service before?
No.
Never once? Didn't your mother ever... I'm so sorry, Joseph. I'm being nosy, and I hate nosy people. I'll finish up the dishes. You and Jack run upstairs and get ready. There's 2 fresh shirts for you on the banister. And Jack, this year you can't wear your work
Mom,
boots to
tell me
church.
what's-
Nope. No arguments. Don't even try.
I wore my boots. She didn't even notice. That night it was cold and dark when we got to this congregation. Inside the air was filled with that sweet waxy smell of candles burning. And we were a little late, so we had to stay up. We sang a few songs, but Joseph didn't even open his mouth. Then Reverend Lou got up to tell the story.
About Joseph and Mary. 2 kids not really married. They found out they were going to have a baby and they were in trouble. But God sent angels, and the angels told them that God would be with them and that the baby would be special. So Joseph took care of Mary. And when they had to go to a faraway city and couldn't find a place to stay, because like I said, there sure wasn't anyone helping them, Joseph found a place. And under the stars, the moon, and Jupiter, they had their baby. And they loved their baby. How much of that story is true?
Well, I think all of it has to be true. What none of it?
The angels. Really?
Well, why not?
Because bad things happen. If there are angels, then bad things wouldn't happen. What kind of love is that?
Well, maybe angels aren't always meant to stop bad things.
So what good are they?
To be with you when the bad things happen.
Then where the hell were they?
On Christmas morning, it was still snowing hard, so we stayed inside all day to open presents. The usual stuff, socks and shirts. Thrilling.
I got a copy of the book Walden.
The only thing more boring than socks. When we finished opening gifts, Joseph started reading the first few pages of Walden, probably to plead the light when my father said,
Joseph, I think there's one more thing for you.
Will help.
call Mrs. Stroud tomorrow. See if we can set up a time for you to meet her.
Meet her.
Nothing's certain yet, but we're hoping to plan a time for you to meet Jupiter.
And you know what? When my father placed his hand on Joseph's shoulder, he didn't even flinch.
I'm going to see Jupiter. I'm going to see Jupiter.
It stayed wicked cold through Christmas vacation, and whenever it was warm enough to go outside, Joseph and I had to shovel the snow by the house and the barns and the driveway.
And each time we had to throw the snow higher and higher to make it over the drift we had just made. And on this one day, we were throwing this very high pile of snow when I took my pile of snow and threw it right at
Joseph, you idiot! It's so cold!
Come back in, boys. Dinner's ready.
Mom, Joseph threw snow in my face when I was trying to shovel.
So what?
Well, I'm glad you got at least something done before you undid all your hard work.
Come on, give him a break.
I didn't really care. Joseph had plenty. And smiled. I didn't get to see that very often.
We had been waiting for a phone call about Jupiter since Christmas. Hello?
It wasn't Mrs. Stroud, and it wasn't about Jupiter.
Yes, hello, Mr. Brooke. No, I don't think that will be possible. Has Mrs. Stroud been informed? We won't allow this unless... All right. 4 o'clock. Yes, 4 o'clock. Okay. Yes, he's right here. I suppose you could talk with him. Your father's hired a lawyer. He somehow got visitation rights, and I don't know how, but he'll be here on Monday to see you, Joseph.
Okay. Hey, Dad. No, I'm okay. On Monday?
They had taken Joseph to Lake Adams Juvenile.
Okay.
The high fences,
I'm
the
sorry.
exits were always locked. I couldn't think about him
Okay.
there. I came later in the
Goodbye.
month to deliver some papers.
What are these for?
Well, Joseph, since you're minor, you have no parental rights over this child. So these involve parental rights, Joseph. You're signing over to the state so that we can find the best possible future for your baby.
My baby.
And frankly, since your father isn't cooperating with us, we really need you to help.
She's a girl. What's her name?
Jupiter Joyce.
Jupiter. Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Joseph, I'm not really supposed to give you this, but
She was beautiful. Better than beautiful. She was holding her perfect hands, and her perfect fingers, and her perfect fingernails up over her head. And her mouth was spread in a yawn. She was looking at me. She was looking right at me. She looked warm in her light green blanket and hat. And she was like a planet in a dark sky.
Joseph, you need to sign these papers.
No, I can't.
Joseph, Jupiter has to be put up for adoption. But I promise you I will find her a good family who loves her and will take care of her.
I love her. I'll take care of her.
Joseph, you're only 14 years old. You can't take care of her. You want what's best for Jupiter.
We're what's best for Jupiter. Me and Maddie.
Joseph, I didn't want to tell you this. I thought it would be too much, and I guess, well, I know it still will be. But Joseph, you need to sign these papers. Because if you don't, Madeline's parents will prosecute you. There were complications, Joseph.
Don't say anything.
Joseph, Madeline
Don't
is...
say anything. Don't say anything.
Please.
Don't say anything.
Joseph.
Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything.
She's gone, Joseph. She's gone. But I promise you this is what she would have wanted. And that's how Joseph heard for the first time he would never see Madeline again. Never talk to her, never touch her, never walk through the woods with her. So Joseph heard for the first time that Madeline was gone.
We didn't talk about his father coming. But it was like that feeling you have in dreams. When you know something is coming and all you can do is hope you wake up before it does. Joseph was waiting for me after school on Monday, and he said he was going to walk home, and I told him I was going to walk with him, and he didn't say I was being a jerk. And we stopped at Oldhurst Congregation to throw snowballs. But when we got back home, there was an old beat-up van in the driveway. It said, Brook Plumbing. And next to it, another car with...
State of Maine, Department of Health and Human Services.
We went into the house, me in front of Joseph.
Hey, Stucky. Hey. It takes a lawyer to see my own son, but I finally got one. A good one. Okay. Let's go talk.
The living room is free, but...
I'm taking my son for a drive.
No, you are staying here in the house.
Like hell we will.
I can end this visit right now, Mr. Brooke. It's your choice. I am so sorry about this. I really am. I advised against it, but Mr. Brooke is right. He's got a good lawyer. Well, I guess a threatening lawyer. And unfortunately, those are the ones that get what they want.
So what does he want?
We think he wants money.
He's here for money.
He's complicating the adoption for Jupiter. His lawyer claims that since Joseph is a minor, he has no parental rights to begin with. His father, the legal guardian, has those rights. And it seems to be that Mr. Brooke won't sign anything away until a large check arrives at his house with Madeline's parents' signatures on it. I mean, of course, nothing in writing says all of this, but we all know that's what he's waiting for.
So Joseph?
Mr. Brooks' lawyer's thinking ahead. He wants to be able to demonstrate his parental affection for his son, then by extension his granddaughter.
Jupiter.
Jupiter. And Jupiter?
Her adoption is in limbo. Madeline's parents want to move on, and of course they want Jupiter adopted into a good home, but until Mr. Brooks signs those papers, none of that can happen.
So Joseph's voice doesn't count.
He's a minor, but I promise you I'm doing everything I can.
Mr. Brooke, can we talk about...
I've got right to my own son, you know. Who the hell do you think you are keeping him from me? You think I'm going to give him to someone just because they're rich? I've got a lawyer now, too.
Mr. Brooke, if you don't leave now...
Who am I kidding? You have a sweet deal. You get to keep that check from the state every month to keep my kid. You're in this for the money. Does he know that? Do you know that you're just a job for them? You are nothing but income. What kind of love is that?
Joseph, your father's right. Every month a check comes from the state, but I need you to see where it goes. This is a printout for the bank. It shows checks being put into an account every month, starting here. See? And here's the balance in the account. All of the checks being added together. You see that too?
Now, look here. You see your name? The account is in your name. That money's for you. It's the beginning of your college fund, Joseph.
College fund? You think Joe is going to college? Like he's going to go to some pretentious school and act like he's smarter than his dad? You think that's going to happen?
Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. And if you ask any of his teachers, they'd say so too.
They don't know afford. And I'm telling you, the day's not far off when I come back to take my kid away. Like I said, a father's got rights.
We'll see.
We'll see. How would you like it if someone came to take your kid away? How would you like it? I bet you do whatever it took to get him back.
Touch him!
I'll be back to get you as soon as I can, Joseph. Things will be better for us, I promise. It'll be a new life for both of us. And you won't have to go to college for it.
Mr. Brooke.
And Joe, next time you try to tell me not to do something,
Am I really going to college?
I think Mrs. Dolby would have our heads if you didn't.
I am going to college. And I'm going to see Jupiter.
The next day, the cold broke. It only lasted for a few days, but the sun was bright and the sky was too bright and blue to look at. The cows got restless thinking it was time to go out again, and our horse, Quintus Sartorius, swished his tail and snorted and nickered and did everything he could just to tell us how happy he was that spring was coming. Even if it was a long way off. Sometimes it's like that. Just knowing something is coming is enough to make you snort and nicker.
I'm going to college. And I'm going to see Jupiter.
But the days dragged on and the snow got heavy again. And when I called Mrs. Stroud, she said that we would just have to wait to find out about Jupiter. And when I called her again, she said that we would just have to be patient.
In order for Joseph to receive visitation rights, we need permission from his foster parents, his counselor, and the head of schools he was attending. Now, obviously Mr. and Mrs. Kirk were okay with this. When I asked his counselor, she seemed to need more time. And when I asked his head of schools, Mrs. Canton, she said,
I'm not sure it will be good for Joseph. I imagine you were notified when Joseph got into a fight recently. Well, I don't think he should be rewarded
so
for
I
that.
asked him to his teachers instead. I got recommendations right away.
To whom it may concern, I have used the word genius 3 times in my life. Once when I spent a weekend holed up in my basement and I finally found out Excel told you. Once when I saw that my friend on Facebook found out how to fix a broken monitor with a bobby pin, a gum wrapper, and some pliers. And once when 8th grader Joseph Brooke came into my classroom one afternoon, sat down and finished an entire trigonometry test in 15 minutes for fun. He is one of my best, most responsible students, and I did not hesitate for a moment when Mrs. Hurd asked me to write this recommendation. Actually, he's made my life quite a bit better, now that I have someone to eat lunch with every day. And he loves math almost as much as I do.
Letters were great. Unfortunately, it wasn't exactly what we needed. When I tried to tell that to Joseph, didn't quite get it.
Did she say when you can see Jupiter?
No.
Did she say how long until they decide?
No.
Did she say anything?
Jupiter's in Brunswick.
Brunswick.
Brunswick is south of here, right?
Joseph, you can't.
South.
Well, yeah, but you can't just
Jackie,
go.
let's just shut up for now, okay?
Okay,
Okay.
it's Jack.
Yeah.
It was when they found out that Joseph tried to kill a teacher. They sent him to Stone Mountain Detention Facility. He only stayed one day, and one night, and then he tried to leave. They caught him when he was at the top of the fence, caught in a roll of barbed wire. When he pulled free, the razor ripped along the top of his foot, and as he fell, the razor cutting along his side, starting from under his right arm to almost his knee. teacher said he'd never put so many stitches in one little boy's body. When I visited him that day, I asked him, "Where do you think you were going?" "You know that Madeline is gone."
Where do you think I was going?
"Joseph, you're 13 years old. You can't be a father."
I am a father.
"No, you signed away."
No, I am Jupiter's father. I will always be Jupiter's father.
After that, he wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't talk to anyone. Not even when he got beat up. The first time, the second time, and the third time. Not even when I held him down and he wouldn't let up. He wouldn't talk to anyone. So that's when I told him I was going to speak with the best foster parents I knew. I hadn't taken any boys in for almost 12 years. They lived in an organic farm. Would he like that? Living on a farm? I mean, they didn't have a lot of technology. They'd have to go to a school called Easton. They had acres of land, 2 cows named Rosie and Dahlia, and a horse, and woods, and a pond to skate on. Would he like all of that?
I am Jupiter's father. I will always be Jupiter's father.
Joseph always knew where Jupiter was.
Joseph was gone. Gone. The next day he wouldn't talk to me. Not when we ate breakfast together, not when we stood to wait for the bus, and not in any of our classes. And I don't think he would talk to anyone else that day either. When I went to meet him at the school bus at the end of the day, he wasn't there. And when I watched out the window of the bus to see if he was walking, he wasn't there. And when I got home, he wasn't there, and he wasn't there by milking time either, so I got started alone.
It was then that we checked his room and found the missing clothes and the missing second volume of Octavian Nothing and the missing backpack.
My mother called Mrs. Canton and Mrs. Stroud and Mrs. Donnelly, but none of them had seen or heard from him. That's when my father and I decided to drive around and try and find him. And I knew just where he was headed.
Joseph always knew where Jupiter was.
Chapter 7. Gone.
We hadn't driven more than 10 minutes out of Easton when it began to snow. A lot. The snow came down with hard gusts, socking the sides of the pickup and blotting out the windshield.
The roads kept getting worse and worse, and the longer we drove, the more I lost hope of finding him. Now or ever again.
He's probably found a place to stay.
I'm not sure who believed him.
About 45 minutes out of Easton, we decided to turn back. We hadn't gotten very far, but we weren't getting much further than this.
I had already called Mrs. Stroud, who had called the police, and I called Mrs. Canton and a couple of Joseph's other teachers, just to see if Joseph might be hiding out in a janitor's closet or something. But none of them seemed to know what to do either. That was when Mrs. Canton showed up.
Hello, Mrs. Hurd. May I come in?
Yes, of course. Can I get you anything?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I heard your boy's in a little trouble. I just came to see if there's anything I can do to help.
Well, thank you, but I'm not sure there is at the moment. We've already called the police and a couple of Joseph's teachers. I'm just here holding down the fort while my husband and Jack are out looking for me. Nothing we can do but wait now, I suppose.
Now, Mrs. Hurd, you can't blame yourself. It's nothing you did wrong. It's natural for things like this to happen, especially with kids like Joseph. I knew something like this would happen. Joseph comes from a group of people who are bound to run off eventually. It's nothing you did wrong.
I'm sorry?
I just mean that sooner or later something like this was bound to happen. Joseph has a history of misbehaving and acting out like this. I just never.
Mrs. Canton!
My mother, I should tell you, is a pacifist.
I should tell you something. I have been arrested 3 times for protesting foreign policy in El Salvador, and 5 times for protesting nuclear power. So I don't like pushing policemen very much, and I don't like pushing vice principals either. So I suggest that you leave, Mrs. Canton, because I am afraid you are in far more danger of a flattened face than you understand. The rest of the night we sat, waited for a phone call as we listened to the storm blowing outside.
Waited and listened.
No one said anything.
waited, listened.
Under the stars and the moon.
In the storm and through the snow, I couldn't see you. I hope Joseph did. He always knew where she was.
Mrs. Strode.
Hello, Mrs. Hurd. I'm so sorry for you guys today tonight.
No, please, come in.
Can we get you in?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Well, have you heard anything yet?
There's no sign from yet, but the police have been alerted between Brunswick and Easton, and the state troopers are now watching on the highways. Didn't have a recent picture of Joseph, but this was taken right before he went to Stone Mountain. Doesn't look a whole lot like him now, but it's all I have.
Yeah. I would never let him grow his hair that long. I'll find him.
I am confident he will be found soon. This is not the first time that Joseph has run off. We have found him every time. But you guys know I've been caring for Joseph. I mean, working with Joseph for almost, 3 years now, and every time he's run off, he's always found his way back home. I'm certain this is no different. Just really sorry about you guys like this. I never meant for any of this.
We're the ones who signed up for it, weren't we?
Well, yes, but I should have given more warning that something like this would happen, and if I had been really sure he was ready for this adjustment, and that I had prepared him for his new life here. Well, I guess I just guessed that I did something right for him. Anyways, I come to offer my help.
Help?
I may have been looking for Joseph since yesterday, and the police are looking for him now. I still think it may be a good idea to keep searching. I know it might seem hopeless, but you know Joseph best. Better inclined to be going to you.
You think we should go to Brunswick right now?
It's still snowing heavily outside. There's no way he could be out right now. Really, the chance of us finding him is...
It's Joseph. Joseph is gone. We need to go.
The next morning, we decided to split up. Mrs. Stroud drove through the east side of Easton, and we took the west side.
I stopped everywhere I thought Joseph might have stayed. Gas stations, fast food restaurants, hotels, churches, bars. The Herds gave me a second photo of Joseph. It was him standing next to one of their cows. It was hard to make his face out in the barn light, and honestly, it was more of a picture than a cow than anything else. It was all I had, so I showed it everywhere. And everywhere I stopped, the answer was always no. The gas station,
Nope.
the fast food restaurants, I would say every motel. You're looking for a cow? Every bar. I don't recognize them.
My husband Jack and I drove through Lewiston and down towards Brunswick. We stopped again and again and again, but no one else had seen anything of Joseph. We finally found a place to eat, and then we decided to stop and look around on foot.
No one else was on the street. It was that cold.
Let's split up.
Okay, but we're not staying out this cold too long, and you can't be back home too late. You take this side of the street, your mother and I will split up further ahead.
The wind, of course, was right in my face now, and the sky was spitting snow. Okay, so maybe I was a little mad at Joseph. I couldn't feel my fingers or the ends of my toes. I mean, what chance did he have walking around the streets of Brunswick and finding a house with a baby, and that baby being Jupiter? I guess I was just stupid. I mean, what chance did I have walking around the streets of Brunswick and suddenly running into him? As if I could turn a corner and he'd be there, cold, alone. Watching the house where Jupiter is sleeping, with her.
Joseph always knew where Jupiter was.
I had a car, an ambulance drove by, and a few minutes later, a police car. I hoped it wasn't anything to do with Joseph. Ahead of me, a car pulled into the driveway, and kids got out. My mother looked at me, and I almost said something. I think she might have been scared. It's not what Joseph meant to do.
Something to be afraid of?
When I finally saw the library, I think my face had frosted.
I drove all the way to Lewiston, stopping everywhere with no luck. So I tried to think of what Joseph would have done. If I were Joseph, I probably wouldn't be going into stores. I'd be walking around the neighborhood somewhere, hoping that someone would walk out so I could ask them if a new baby was found. Something like that. And if he would make up a story of why he wanted to know, and then I guess just hope someone would tell me. I rounded the block of houses, and it was then I found my first bit of hope in a small Baptist church where I walked in and overheard this conversation. Have you seen this boy?
Yeah, he was here actually.
He was here?
Well, I can't say exactly when he got here, but I found him yesterday morning in the teen Sunday school room.
Is he still here?
Well, I'm afraid not. We had breakfast and we talked. He was pretty hungry since I'm pretty sure all he had to eat was some potato chips he found in the church kitchen. And they'd been there a lot longer than they should have.
What did you say to him?
Well, we didn't talk for long. I asked him where he was from, and he said he was from Portland. He gave me some phone number that he said was his parents, but when I went to call, I just got some real estate agent from Yarmouth on the line. When I came back to the room, he was gone already. How do you know?
Oh, I'm the principal of the school he attends. His poor family has been searching for him everywhere. He's one of their foster kids. A sad case, really. Were you aware that this boy has been in multiple juvenile detention facilities? In a small church in Lewiston, looking for the same boy that I was. The lady that refused to write his letter. Mrs. Canton. Mr. Greenleaf, are you aware that you let someone with a criminal record in your church and then just let him go?
Well, I didn't know anything about that. I mean, he looked like he needed help, so I just...
Did you think about helping yourself? This is a boy who has physically assaulted others on multiple occasions. I don't think this is the right place for someone like him to be.
Well, actually, I imagine a church must be exactly the right place for a person like him to be. So what's the boy's real name?
Joseph Brooke.
I'll be praying for Joseph Brooke. If I were you, I'd check some of the other public spaces around here. The library, perhaps?
And that's when I got my other idea. I like to think I know Joseph pretty well by now. And if that's true, I know exactly who he's looking for. Jupiter's foster mother lives in Brunswick. She works at the library, and I visited Jupiter at her house before. So if I know Joseph, I know where he's going.
Libraries are terrific in a whole lot of ways, but one way is that on a frozen day in May you could go inside. Everything was so warm. I went around asking if anybody had seen Joseph, but everyone said no. I asked if anybody knew a little girl named Jupiter, but everyone said no. In the back there was a children's section. Some of the mothers are babies. Yeah, I thought he might have been there too.
Who are you looking for? I overheard you ask me. What's his name?
Joseph.
What's he doing in Brunswick?
He's looking for Jupiter. I mean his daughter.
His daughter.
Her name is
Jupiter.
yes,
This is Jupiter's father.
Joseph Brooke.
He's just a baby himself,
He's 14.
like I said. I think I need to make a phone call.
You know her? You know where she is?
I think we better make a phone.
All he wants to do is see her, that's all. He just wants to see his daughter.
And who are you? How do you know?
We live together. His brother, I guess. It doesn't matter. I have his back. Why can't he see her?
You don't even know where he is. And how do you know it would be good for him? I'm sure it wouldn't be good for her.
She's 6 months old.
And he's in high school. They're not going to be together. He can't give her what she needs.
He loves her.
Yes, he loves her. He can do that, but he can't just love her for himself. It's selfish. He has to love her for her too.
All he wants to do is see her, that's all. He just wants to see his daughter. Please, if you do anything to make this possible
You
happen.
can tell Joseph that Jupiter is doing fine. Tell him that she's growing and she's happy and that she will find it. Tell him that he and his father need to let her go.
I guess that's quite a lot.
Take care of her.
Tell him that she's beautiful. Better than beautiful. Tell him that I will take care of her and that she will find a family who loves her.
And tell Jupiter that Joseph tried to find him. He tried really hard, okay? And he loves her. He loves her a lot even if she doesn't know it.
What kind of love is that? Hello? Yes, this is she. Oh. No, I know who that is. That's Jupiter's father. No, it's Jupiter's father. No, I can handle this. This is some sort of plan, isn't it?
What?
You come here where I work and he goes to the house.
He's at your house.
My husband says a boy who looks just like this has been standing in our yard since noon. If you had anything to do with this, you better come home.
It's not a plan. I promise.
I am going to go against my better judgment here and keep you with me. Maybe you can talk him out of this. We should leave now. Do you mind if I drive?
I'm 12. She had a full lot of rules.
You have to stay in the car the whole time. Your seatbelt has to be buckled the whole time. You shouldn't interfere. You shouldn't expect to
In the car, the boy there, I couldn't think of anything besides how glad I was that I wasn't outside. The wind still sounded horrible, whipping around our cars and starting to get dark. Crying, longing, scared. All alone by itself in the cold. I just kept looking out a window for Joseph,
And then, there he was.
standing alone. In front of a small brick house, a yard that would have been nice in the summer, but would be bare right now.
He stood with his arms crossed to keep out any cold he could.
I think he had been stargazing, looking for her in the sky. It's 90-21 degrees out. Under the stars, the moon, and Jupiter.
Joseph always knew where Jupiter was.
He had actually found her. Here. Because he always knew where she was.
He looked just like her. Determined, like she is.
He didn't even have a winter coat. He'd been standing for hours. And he didn't even have a winter coat. He looked like he could have waited to the end of the world. Which probably wouldn't.
What kind of love is that?
She handed him a picture of Jupiter.
Jupiter.
And she told him all about her. How she was growing up. How she had the funniest personality. How she was beginning to look just like him. Joseph just stood there. He just listened. Still without his winter coat. He just listened. About how a girl, his girl, was growing up.
Joseph is the best thing.
Jupiter.
I'm sorry you can't see me, Joseph. I really am.
Her father.
I'll tell her all about it. Oh, I'll write to her, I promise.
Tell her I.
Joseph,
What are you doing
we came looking for you?
Look at this.
Joseph smiled. Really smiled. What kind of love is that?
She's beautiful.
So Jackie, you still got my back?
And it's Jack.
Have I ever told you the first time me and Maddie danced? It was great.
But on the way back, in the car, Joseph told me again. He told me how they would wait until the stars came out, and she would take his hand and she would hum. How he couldn't even imagine closing his eyes. And while he told me, he didn't look away from that picture of Peter even once. Mrs. Stroud had a lot to say about Joseph,
Violating rules, being mature,
understanding.
understanding boundaries, and what was he thinking anyways?
And Joseph and I started walking to school together again. Joseph didn't want to hear a whole lot of what the bus driver had to say. And when we walked, he would tell me about how he would walk with her. How he knew he loved her because those long miles together felt like nothing. How sometimes he didn't even need to say anything. They just walked together. And sometimes he didn't even need to say anything to me either. And once in a while, we would stop to skate on the Alliance, and he would tell me about it. How she would put her arms out while she skated, and the wind would blow her hair all around her face. And when we skated, we would put our arms out just like her. And when we stopped to have snowball fights on the way to the Alliance, he would tell me about how they would have snowball fights. How she would hit him as hard as she could with a snowball, which wasn't very hard. But he couldn't hit her. He knew he loved her because he couldn't even imagine hitting her with a snowball. But he didn't hit me either. I know he could. And before we went to bed every night, he would tell me about the time they danced together. How they'd wait until the stars came out, and she would take his hand, and she would hum under his breath. And they would sway to it too. Under the stars and the moon and Jupiter, their favorite planet. And she would close her eyes, but he couldn't. He didn't want to miss a second. Because he loved her. I guess you can't replace some moments.
Chapter 8. Snarling and Niggering. The nights stayed cold, but the days began to warm. It was about the time of year when my husband and I would tap our maple trees for syrup. And this year, with Joseph's help, we tapped 36 trees on just the first day.
These pails are filling quick. What did we ever do without you, Joseph? Think we can put in another 2 dozen tomorrow?
No problem. Jupiter would love this.
Someday she will.
Joseph and I could hardly wait to get home from school every day. We couldn't wait to see if Joseph had gotten any more letters from the library. Every week we would hear just a little bit more about Jupiter, how she was growing up. Joseph said that it was almost
Almost riding the bus home.
But we couldn't ride the bus home because every day after class, Mrs. Donnelly would call him into her classroom and the two of them would work on trick questions for another 30 minutes. Yep. After school had already ended, Joseph deliberately chose to be more.
Things were really changing for Joseph at school. In PE, Coach Switek had put him in charge of his own squad of kids wanting to go out to track and field in the spring. Joseph would work with them in the field stuff. Long jump, broad jump, even pole vault. And he was so good at it that no one cared that he was coaching him. And Mrs. Holloway, in language arts, was calling on him a lot. I think it was because she saw him reading the book Walden. And she asked, "Do you like it?" And he said he had already read it once.
and I'm reading it again.
And she asked if he had read her favorite Thoreau book, A Week on the Concord and Merrimack Rivers. And so she took him to the library and they checked it out together. And well, you know how English teachers are. They get you to check out a book they love, they're yours for life. And Joseph wasn't doing fifth period office duty anymore. Mrs. Canton had said something about how
Joseph had learned to be responsible.
No kidding! that's all fun stuff. But most importantly, I nominated Joseph for the Math Olympiad in April. Freaking Olympiad, the greatest math competition in the state, where great mathematical minds battle it out. Many enter, only one wins. So I spent 30 minutes with Joseph every day teaching him more trigonometry. And even if Joseph didn't win the title of Maine's Math Olympiad champion, I made sure he was ready for high school and someday college. He began to feel normal, like it would always be like this.
And so we spent our winter learning about Jupiter and tapping our maple trees for all they were worth. And it began to feel normal, like it would always be like this.
Like it would always be like this.
Until the day we got home and saw a new flea market ducked up by farm.
Jackie, go in the barn.
Why?
Just do it, okay?
So I waited in the barn.
Waited and listened.
Waited and listened.
What kind of love is that?
And it wasn't until I heard my mother yell that I ran back into the house.
Mr. Brooks!
Stop! This changes things, doesn't it? Yeah, it sure does. All I want's my boy, same as you.
We both want what's best for our boys. We both want what's best, but this isn't the way to do it.
Oh, it's my way. You sold her! You sold her! I made an arrangement. It's not like you were gonna get her. We needed the money. I'm not a do-good fool like them, Joe.
No!
Done now, Joe? Get in the truck. In the truck!
You're going to get in your truck. You're going to let my boy go. You're going to get in your truck right now, and this is
Stop! You think you're in charge here? Give me my boy, and we'll be gone.
How far do you think you'll make it? Then we watch it for you. They can find trucks like yours easy.
So maybe I'll take both of them. How would you like that? I'll take my kid and yours for insurance.
No! No, Dad. Leave him here. Leave them here. Let's just go. Come on, Dad, let's just go. Please.
I watched through the window as Joseph got into the bright pickup. And slowly, under the stars and the moon and Jupiter, I watched Joseph leave. But not before he looked back one last time just to see me. And then he was gone.
Gone.
The winter I was 6, I saw a yellow dog on thin ice in the Alliance River. I was with my mother and we were walking back from Old First Congregational. The dog was pretty far out and had fallen through and its eyes were huge. It was grabbing onto the front paws, scratching, looking for something to hold on to. It wasn't making a sound and I told my mother that we had to go get it. She just stood there holding her hand over her mouth. It just kept looking for something to hold on to. And the dog almost got out, but the ice broke under it again and it was gone. Gone. I live on a farm. I see animals die all the time. Never like that. I cried about that yellow dog every night for I don't know how long. They didn't get Mr. Brooks' pickup truck out of the river for 2 days. My mother didn't let me go, but she went. She said that it was Mrs. Canton who opened the door on Joseph's side. Mrs. Canton! But it was my mother who pulled Joseph's body out of the frozen trunk.
So we figured it happened. Joseph's father was probably driving a lot faster than he could handle. Mrs. Canton was driving out of school, and she was about to turn right when she saw the white pickup coming toward her. She braked and skidded on the ice into the middle of the road. Joseph's father hit her square. We Mrs. Caton's car went over the trees and into an embankment. Then he turned in front of Old First Congregational, through the bridge outside, and out of the Alliance Bridge. They didn't make it halfway. The rotted timbers collapsed and the pickup was...
Gone. Joseph is gone. But he had something going on. He had Jupiter. He had matter.
Joseph's funeral was 3 days later. Mrs. Canton was there.
He's the only. My mother and father. Story was there. What else were you?
Reverend Blue and Mrs. Stroud. That was it. Only 9 people.
We met in a prayer chapel because there were so few of us.
It was simple. He sang, and Reverend Blue read some verses. Joseph would have loved it. Simple.
for he will command his angels concerning you, guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Where the hell were they?
Bad things happen. If there were angels, then bad things wouldn't happen. Where the hell were they?
And you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. Before a word is on my tongue, you, O Lord, know.
I knew Joseph. I knew Joseph! I knew he hated very long underwear. I knew he loved hearing the bell and hoped this congregation will ring. I knew he loved the way Rosie moved when he wrote her. And I knew he acted tough because he had to. And I know he loved Maddie a lot. So much so that he walked 7 miles there and back just because he had to see her. So much that he couldn't even imagine hitting her with a snowball. So much that he could just watch her skate. I knew that he could take a hit. When Jane Perkins reared his fist back and smashed it into his face. When Nick Porter covered his mouth and slammed him again and again into the lockers. I knew that he would scream in the middle of the night when no one else was up at the stars. I knew that he would just cry and yell her name like he would do anything to find me and God.
To all of them. Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Jupiter, he would do anything for you.
Consider your heavens, the works of your fingers, the moon and stars which you have ordained. To him who made the great lights, for his loving kindness is everlasting. The sun to rule by day.
Stars and the moon and Jupiter, you left that out. Under the stars and the moon and Jupiter, I watched him get into the truck and drive away. And he just looked at me like he would have done it again in a heartbeat. Without a second thought, he walked across the room and went to die for me.
Hath no end in these, that a man lay his life down for his friend.
Stop it! What kind of love is that? Joseph wasn't just my friend. I had his back and he had mine. That's what greater love is.
It is well. It is well with my soul.
My grace is sufficient for you.
With
My
my
power is
soul.
made perfect in weakness.
It is well. It is well with my soul. Chapter 9. Jupiter Joyce.
It was a Wednesday afternoon, 1 year later, on what would have been Joseph's 16th birthday, when Mrs. Stroud drove up our long driveway. Past the barn and the cows and fields. Past the pond which I finally got. Past the apple trees which were just beginning to bloom, and past the peas doing their dances. Up the big hill in front of our garage, and in the backseat of the car was you, Jupiter Joyce. Dark eyes, dark hair, slightly shorter for your age than normal, and just about middle for everything else. You were smiling and saying what you did.
Jupiter.
Jupiter. This is your new brother, Jupiter.
Jupiter.
His name is Jack. Jupiter.
You can call me Jackie.
Jupiter.
I took your hand and we waddled around the car together. Then around the yard. We went into the barn and I introduced you to Rosie and Dalia. Then I showed you the pond where Joseph used to skate. And we sat outside for hours until the stars came out.
That's what greater love is.
that one? You know what that star is called? It's Jupiter. Cute. Joseph always knew where Jupiter was. Among all the other stars, you can see a lot of the stars you see. When we walk through the woods behind the house, you look up at the sky and find you. It didn't matter if it was raining or snowing or anything. Joseph always knew. Jupiter, I promise I'll always